Hello, Apex. As the voice at the back said, I'm Alex, and I'm the tech person at the Interledger Foundation. It's great to finally be here in person this year. If you've been here last year, you might remember me as a talking head on one of those screens, and that's because the US government insisted on me delivering my talk remotely last year. I'm super excited to be here in person, and I'd like to give everybody an update on what we've all been up to at the Interledger Foundation and the ecosystem in the past year. If you kind of don't remember what happened last year, or if you need a refresher for Interledger, we've worked up a little video for you. And it's 1 minute and 22 seconds, I think. And here's a quick little refresher for what Interledger is and what Interledger does.
In our modern world, technology moves at light speed. But why has our financial infrastructure failed to keep up with the pace of change? The Interledger protocol was created to make sending money across the internet easy. We envisioned a payments network that acts as a bridge between anyone and the entire world. Today, when we send an email, we take it for granted that once we hit send, the email will appear in the recipient's inbox almost instantly. It doesn't matter if you're sending from one email provider to another. It works seamlessly in a matter of seconds, not days. The Interledger protocol is designed so you can send money as easily as you can send an email. It's a network that reflects our interconnected world, accessible to all, regardless of identity, geography, or income. One that's more inclusive, without minimum transaction amounts or costly transfer fees. The closed networks of the past keep people disconnected. Our mission is to bring our financial infrastructure into the 21st century and give everyone equal access to a global financial network. Email your digital bank or digital wallet provider and ask them to consider joining us to help make the world a more interconnected place. Visit interledger.org/today to learn more.
Interledger is a protocol that is loosely based on the TCP/IP protocol. In the same way TCP/IP takes care of standardizing, packetizing, and transporting data across a network of computers, the Interledger protocol found a way to standardize, packetize, and transport money across different places where you store money. We call these ledgers, but if you think about ledgers, they used to be literally a book of accounts that stored value and recorded your transactions. Your bank had the ledger, your shopkeeper had the ledger. Everywhere where you had credit, we stored money, there was a ledger associated with it. And when those moved to the digital world with developers, you know how developers are, I'm one of them. I think probably there's 70 different ledger implementations which don't really talk to each other. Some of them are 40 years old and written in COBOL. If you're banking with the Bank of America, I'm really sorry for you. that was it. Some of them are new and on Mongo and whatever, but none of those represents money in a similar fashion. Interledger helps them represent money in a similar fashion, put it in a packet, send it into a network of ledgers, right? And the biggest network that uses the TCP/IP protocol, if you haven't heard about the TCP/IP protocol, that's fine. It's obscure a little bit. The biggest network that runs the TCP protocol, you might have heard of that. We colloquially call that the internet. In a similar fashion, we have the Interledger network, which runs a bunch of ledgers that are compatible and enabled with Interledger, and that all talk to each other using this protocol. And that's what Interledger does, right? It's a protocol in the network. If you think about the internet, though, the internet is not really just a protocol in a network. It's a way to find things on it. It's a way to access that data, even if you don't know what the data is, what the data is, where the data is stored, or why you need that data exactly. Discoverability is intrinsically part of the internet. With any payment network out there, discoverability is not intrinsically part of the network. And the reason for that is it's actually very hard to do on one end, and on the second one, it pays to not be discoverable. If you have this walled garden, it pays to keep people in your walled garden and not connect them with each other. We didn't want to create yet another yet another walled garden. The protocol, the idea behind the protocol was to make the money move like the internet. It was all about making things interoperable. And just by putting together a protocol and asking people to use it, it was interoperable, but it wasn't discoverable by default. So we came up with this discoverability layer, which we call open payments. And it's literally a set of standards, or the open payment standard, that sits on top of Interledger-enabled wallets that tells them how to interact with each other and how to find each other in the network, even when they don't know exactly where in the world that is. So when we came up with the standard and we thought about discoverability, we thought of a few very specific use cases. If you want to pay somebody today, getting details about how to pay them is a hassle to begin with. I have to figure out where do you bank, how do you bank with, what's your bank account, what if you don't bank, what if you have a digital wallet, what if I have to Cash App you, I have Cash App. Right? So getting to figure out that as a human is hard. For my institution to figure out details about your institution is almost impossible. And that's because it doesn't pay to do that. With open payments, we wanted to facilitate the discovery, setup, and authorization of payments between me and you, between my wallet and your wallet, so you don't have to do all of that. Instead of me asking you for a bunch of details that my bank asks me for, I'll just point them to your payment pointer, and that's it. They can figure out anything they need to in order to pay you out of my account from the payment pointer. And we did that for wallets to give this access to the apps. But if you think about the wallets, we thought about the wallets as well. As a wallet, it was kind of hard to figure out who your partners were, who you could actually do this with. So we found a way to enable these facilities, the discovery, setup, and authorization of payments between wallet providers. Humans and individuals aren't the only people transacting on the network. Businesses and institutions do that as well. They should have access to the same level of user experience. And if you think about the user experience we enabled for people transacting on the Interledger, not all payment networks are bad payment networks. Not all institutions are bad institutions. It's just super, super expensive or super hard to enable this level of user experience amongst themselves. When you have 1 million customers, you want to make it good for your 1 million customers. But probably out of your 1 million customers, there's 2 who will account for most of your transactions. It's very hard to justify making the same experience for those 2 institutions. We're trying to do that with open payments. But as the name suggests, open payment standard, it's just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. And as soon as we started implementing those words on a piece of paper, we ran into some issues. We used to want to do simple things like pay people, request money from people, pay an invoice, pay for things recurrently like subscriptions, or give people access to your account to be part of the protocol. And for that, we use this novel concept called mandates, which allowed you to give access to your account to other people. For example, Apple Pay. You have a mandate to Apple Pay. You give Apple Pay access to your bank account, right? Or to your credit card. We wanted this to be not only for the Apple Pays of the world, but for the small companies who could innovate in this space instead of being one walled garden. This being words on a piece of paper, we tried implementing this with OAuth. We figured out OAuth would be a good way to let people access things on your account. We were very, very wrong. Because OAuth was designed to let you log into things, not give people access to things. So I had to kind of shift gears. Turns out this problem is not a new problem to have. A lot of other people have had this problem with OAuth. So the IETF came up with a new thing called GNAP. And it's not GNAP as in the Smurfs, it's GNAP as the Grants Negotiation and Authorization Protocol that lets you give access to resources on an account, not the entire account. So we're using this to kind of rewrite our whole idea of third-party access into something that you can now give access on a specified amount for a specified interval. For example, I want to give you access to $5 out of my account one time and one time only. That means you can take it as soon as you want to, I'm paying you for something. What if I want to pay you recurringly? I can give you access to $5 out of my account once every month. you can submit your payment. One of the things that you can do and that we enabled was, what if I wanted to give you access but put a limit? For example, I want to give you access to $100 out of my account for as many transactions as you need, as long as it all adds up to the $100 for the whole month. And that is to enable use cases like account managers. If you think about Apple Pay, it manages your account. The problem is it manages your entire account. So you have to really trust Apple Pay. You wouldn't give the same level of access into your account to your best friend, right? But you'd give $10 to your best friend to do whatever they wanted on your behalf with it, or to your Zoom wallet or any sort of digital wallet, which you haven't tried, you haven't tested, and maybe they haven't earned your trust yet. But you can give them gated access with this feature. We call them grants because you can literally grant access into your account. And I have some good news for you. It has evolved, all this thinking led us to evolve from a standard into an actual implementation. So today, now, because we've spent the last couple of weeks closeted in a hotel room just like this with the entire team, and we have made this out of a piece of paper into, you can actually play with it today, and you can play with it in Rafiki. Hands up, whoever heard of Rafiki so far. Okay, a bunch of people in the room. We have t-shirts now. Hopefully we don't get sued for it. So we made this into Rafiki. If you're not familiar with Rafiki, way back when the Interledger protocol was created, people came up with something we called the Interledger connector, which was more like an SDK, which was supposed to go into your ledger technology in your piece of software and kind of help you translate money from your side to money on the Interledger side. But as you can imagine, adding a new SDK to your software was kind of hard. You had to actually own the software to make that happen, and the developer resource required was quite high. Plus, you had to know the right people that could actually explain what Interledger was. You had to have Interledger knowledge. And that's kind of stifled adoption of the protocol. We have a few nodes on the network who are super engaged, and that's because they all know each other. They all have a working relationship. We wanted to make it easier to join the network. Enter Rafiki. It was a code name for a project that was supposed to be a node service implementation. So instead of having to put an SDK into your code, you could run this packetized service alongside your software and connect the two, make them talk to each other. The name kind of stuck. It's now officially Rafiki. It's no code name anymore. And it's this software designed, or this service, it's not actually a software, it's a service. It's designed for account providers. If you think about the ledgers we keep talking about, those are run by certain institutions that allow you to have an account with them and they record your transactions. So Rafiki is designed for this. It has two sets of APIs. The public-facing APIs for every account that's Rafiki enabled is the Open Payments API. What we kept talking about Open Payments is now available in Rafiki. So if you have an account with anybody on the network that's running Rafiki, you can do things like create payments and give people access to grants on the network. It also has like an internal admin API, which we just finished now, which allows account providers to actually run and manage their Rafiki instance without having to write their code inside of Rafiki. It allows you to kind of touch Rafiki from the outside. The good news is it's actually runnable today. So we have a Dockerized version that allows you to spin up your own local Interledger network, which kind of spins up two Rafiki instances, peers them together, makes them talk to each other, adds liquidity on both ends, so you can try sending payments from one end to the other. It allows you to test not only the Open Payments APIs, but also the internal admin APIs if you wanted to run your own Rafiki instance. Again, this is a software that's mainly intended for account providers. So if you run any sort of wallet, come find me in the break. I'd love to talk to you about Rafiki some more. But we realized the other part of the problem with the connector was still Interledger knowledge. So we're trying to outsource that knowledge, to take it out of people's heads and into the open space. And we have Rafiki.dev, which is the public-facing documentation for all things account providers. If you're trying to mess with Open Payments, if you're trying to run Rafiki, if you're trying to see how this looks like, and you're not a developer, or if you're a developer, you go to Rafiki.dev. One of the other things that we've been working on this year, outside of just plainly making it easier for people to join the Interledger network, is making it easy for people to use the Interledger network. One of the use cases of the Interledger network is web monetization. Anybody heard of web monetization before? Less people than Rafiki. Let me tell you about web monetization. It's actually impressive. So one of the byproducts of the Interledger protocol and the Interledger network is packets are packets. The size of the money inside of the packet does not matter. It costs as much, and it is as easy to transport $1 million as it is to transport the 100th of a cent. That means micropayments on the network are not only cheap, they're practically free. So a lot of the use cases on the network right now revolve around this concept of streaming money. Web monetization is one of them. It allows you to be in a browser and pay for the content you're using while you're seeing it. Instead of paying for, I know, New York Times is 50 cents a week? Yeah, 50 cents a week. The only problem with it is, and what they don't tell you until you're at the payment part, is they can't actually charge you 50 cents. It costs them probably 35 of it, 33 of it, to charge you 50 cents. So they actually charge you $26 for 52 weeks or the whole year. Instead of doing all this, I would rather pay them 50 cents now, or better yet, start paying for the article. If I don't like it, they don't get my full 50 cents. If I like it, they get more. As much time as I spent on that page, they get paid more. And that's the concept behind web monetization, or that was the concept behind web monetization. We were incubating it with the W3C, and we went and talked to a bunch of browser makers, and the browser makers all said, make it web native. So this year, actually, yesterday, we launched the new version of web monetization, which goes from a meta tag in your page into a link tag in your page, and that's the biggest thing. The fact that browsers work with links rather than meta tags, and that links can be monetized throughout the entire page, not just on the document. For example, if I want to pay the page as a whole, I can do that. If I only want to pay for this cute little graphic in the corner that I like, I can pay for that as well. And we've launched a new standard. If you're on Coil, or if you're using the Coil extension, the Coil extension actually got updated silently this week, because we're going to TPAC next week, and we're gonna unveil this at TPAC. But for you today, you can actually play with the new web monetization standard. And if you're on Twitter after my talk, I'm actually gonna release the documentation for it so you can play with it. So this is all on the technology side. As the tech person at Interledger, you might have seen me as biased here. I talked a lot about the tech. There's a lot of things at the foundation that have nothing to do with the tech and everything to do with the ecosystem, that a bunch of people have been working on it. And I'd like to take a moment, or 6 minutes and a half, to showcase that work as well. So one of the problems we had that we tried to solve from multiple different directions was adoption. How do you get more people on the network? How do you make it easy for your bank, for your digital wallet to join the network? And we created Rafiki for that, but we also created this grant called the Financial Services Grant. We had a CFP that finished in, I want to say September, no, July. One of the CFPs finished really closely, and the acceptance emails went out last week, and it's going to be made public to everybody else. If you were part of the Interledger grants program, you probably got the email already. For everybody else, it's going to make news next week. But hopefully this is recorded and not a live stream. We are going to support 12 financial services in their endeavor to get licensed, get Interledger enabled, and join the Interledger network through this grant. One of the other things we wanted to do was we wanted to help people think about financial inclusion at a global scale. If you think about the Interledger Foundation, our mission is financial inclusion. The only reason we're doing Interledger and the Interledger protocol is because we truly believe this would enable people to get access to a financial system. So we're working with one of the HBCUs. We're doing a pilot program with Bowie State University, where actually yesterday, our executive director kicked off the first class. We've got 17 students in the class who are all trying to do their capstone using Interledger technologies to solve for financial inclusion. Really excited to see what happens. You should definitely keep an eye on that. One of the other things that the foundation is trying to do is public advocacy. I mean, I'm impressed with the number of people in this room who have heard about Interledger. Thank you, everybody, for joining my talk. But we'd like the world to know about Interledger, so we have a lot of, we've done a lot of advocacy for the technology and for the problems in the space and for what problems we solve. One of the advocacy efforts is developer conferences like this one. Thank you, Apex, for having me on stage. And we've been doing a lot of these over the past year, mostly around web monetization and how the Interledger protocol works. We've also tried to engage with some of our partners. Anyone here who's heard about Moduloop before? More people than web monetization. Okay, that says something. So Moduloop is core ledger technology. They are designed to run as the banking infrastructure in a country, in a whole country. And they are deployed across several African nations. They're working their way through Asia right now. And we've worked with them to put Rafiki inside of a Moduloop hub, inside of the Moduloop software, so that an entire country can get connected to the Interledger with the push of a single button. We actually kickstarted the work maybe 4 weeks ago, so it's still under development. We're part of what they call PI19. We have 6 months to work together to integrate Rafiki into a Moduloop hub so that all the new Moduloop deployments could join the Interledger network. We've also engaged in policy advocacy. We were part of a group at the European Union. If you don't know what the European Union is, it's like the United States, but across the pond, with a lot more drama. So we engaged with the European Union to help them design their next set of laws instead of retroactively fixing the broken ones. I don't know if you've seen, probably 3-4 months ago, they've passed a law that said all major messaging providers had to interoperate. So WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, iMessage, and SMS all had to work together. And they managed to break end-to-end encryption in the process. And that's because part of the law, it was, we're going to pass this law, and then after it's passed, we're going to hire 80 tech people to figure out how to do it for us. Obviously, it broke in the very first day. There was so much backlash, they had to go back and amend the law to not break end-to-end encryption. But they're working on the next iteration of this, and that has to do with interoperability, data structures, and how things work. So we've worked with them to help them design the next set of laws so they don't run into the same issues. Everybody talked, every keynote I've seen in here talked about the future, and I felt bad to come all the way to Vegas without talking about the future. So part of the things that haven't come out yet, or that are in the works, is we're working with DFS Labs on a massive research project on the ground across Africa to kind of figure out how this would work in the hands of people. We keep talking about ledgers, and I keep giving you examples about banks. Africa doesn't work on banks. Africa works on your phone. There's this concept called mobile money where your phone number is your account and it's all done through that. So we're trying to work with them to see how that would look like. We're also trying to provide a publicly accessible Interledger network. Right now, if you want to play with Interledger, you have to get an account with somebody on the Interledger. That shouldn't be the case, especially since the people on the Interledger do not cover the globe. We are targeting the global south by design. We have a lot of people in the US. Europe is kind of okay covered, but we have places in the world where you can't get an Interledger account. We'd like to have a public testnet, and we're working on that as well. One of the other problems we encounter is when you're trying to deploy Rafiki, you have to talk to a human. You have to talk to a human before. We're trying to make Rafiki self-serve, so you could stumble upon Rafiki, or you could hear me talk about Rafiki, decide it's good for you, and go and integrate it into your software without ever having to talk to another human being. As a closeted developer who doesn't like people, I feel like this is amazing. One of the other things we're doing is we'd like to say thank you. We'd like to say thank you to everybody in a massive way. And so in November, in New Orleans, we are putting on a show. It's called the Interledger Summit. Everybody in the room is invited, honestly. Please go get a ticket. I'd love to see you in New Orleans. One of the things we're going to do in New Orleans is showcase one of our new partners, let you play with their tech, and say thank you for being part of the Interledger ecosystem. If you'd like to get involved, I have plenty of ways for you to get involved in our community, on Slack, on the forums. Feel free to just join any of those. And with that, I'd like to thank you. Now, before we get to the Q&A part, I'll give you some time to think up of a question. I know I'm the only thing that's staying between you and lunch, but I need to take a selfie on stage to kind of show my boss that I came to Vegas not to gamble and party and have fun, that actually works. So I need you to imagine I made you laugh and you had a really good time, and prepare for my selfie so that it shows that I've actually worked in Vegas while you think up of your question. Okay, 3. No, I don't have a longer arm. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Say cheese to my boss. Cheese to your boss. Brianna's gonna love this. If you haven't met Brianna, she's gonna love this. But you get to meet her in New Orleans if you decide to come to the summit. Okay, I will take a single question and then we'll go to lunch. If you have more questions and I didn't pick you, you can see me with a plate of food and you can ask me anything you want. No questions? Am I that lucky? Okay, that was it. Thank you so much.